Hi, this is Bryan 2 in San Diego, California. It's April 21st, 2018, approximately 4:30 in the afternoon. I want to talk about this technology because people think that mind control technology can tell whether your thoughts are true or false. They simply cannot. There's no legal application for this technology or anything generated by it. And it could never be used against you in a court of law or administrative tribunal, etc. Because there's no way. It's a fabricated and falsified stream containing fabricated and falsified data, meaning fabricated and falsified mental suggestions, fabricated memories around real memories captured during the silent monitoring period and then injected back into your subconscious repeatedly to deceive and manipulate you and pitch you into an action or access sequence. And then falsified memories, which they layer in, never your memories to begin with, which they layer in with the neuroprogramming, the dream modulation, the neurolinguistic programming, and so forth. So there's simply no way. They can look for consistent patterns, but they can't tell whether you're telling the truth or lying. They can't tell whether your thoughts are true or false. They're only going to capture what they want to abuse you with. And by abuse, I mean, when they decide to deceive and to manipulate you, to censor your thoughts, to force you into an abusive, incoherent pattern of thought. Remember, censorship. All mind control technologies, all CIA, DI mind control technologies, doesn't matter what program, state-of-the-art mind control, trauma-based mind control, omega programming, beta programming, it doesn't matter. There are hundreds of programs, doesn't matter. All CIA and DI mind control technologies fall into three categories: censorship, memory management, direct behavioral control. You want to censor your thoughts, force you into an abusive, incoherent pattern of thought, to censor your ability to your memory and thought process. Okay, so they're not interested in the truth. They're only going to capture what they want to abuse you with. Okay, so you need to understand, they're using blocking and injection methods. Memory management is blocking your real memories and injecting with fabricated and falsified memories. There is no legal application whatsoever for this technology. Mind control and these mind control hive mind teams are not interested in any particularly any law. They could care less about the law. They have a license to torture and kill people, and they're not interested in any acceptable way of life. They're intellectual barbarians. They're intellectual barbarians. These cognitive researchers, which make up the hive mind teams, psychiatrists, psychologists, neuroscientists, behavioral scientists, and so forth, are nothing more than intellectual barbarians. They're monsters. They simply use whatever you enjoy, hate, or appreciate, doesn't matter to them, to abuse you. So realize that, if they give you a compliment during the morning or the afternoon, they're only creating a situational and conversational scenario for the purposes of verification of their technology so that they can go back that night and torture you with it repeatedly as the system probes you for a specific set of responses regarding that specific situational or conversational scenario to verify their technology. They want to see how you will respond. Mind control, trauma-based mind control, is based on the responses of the victim. They must force the victim to respond. That's why they constantly target my heart every night. And then as soon as I scream out in the middle of the night, every night, they stop, only to start again and repeat the process all night long, forcing me into a repeated pattern of responses. The only way I can get them to stop is to cry out. Because remember, I'm on surveillance camera. This FBI, police, whatever, BS they've been using for the last 21 years. Okay, so understand what organized stalking is about. Situational and conversational scenarios designed to create memory anchors. Designed to create memory anchors. Nothing. People wonder, in the future, will this technology, when it becomes more sophisticated and advanced, be able to tell whether my thoughts are true or false? No, because the system is using a fabricated and falsified stream. So they don't care about the truth. They couldn't tell whether your thoughts were true or false if their life depended on it. It's simply not possible. Nothing that the system, the R&M supercomputer, is collecting. Remember, that's remote neural monitoring, collecting and cataloging data regarding your memory references. Okay, that's the first stage formulation of remote neural monitoring. Remote neural monitoring being the ability of the system to image, measure, and transmit data regarding your brain and neural activity. Okay, well, the collection and cataloging of data is the first stage. Formulation is the first stage of mind control. But they can't tell whether your thoughts are true or false. Every piece of information that the system is able to capture, okay, is falsified. It must be considered falsified and fabricated because it's a falsified and fabricated stream of energy. It's nothing more. The system is designed simply to provide mental suggestions. According to data, the fabricated and falsified stream that they're using contains data. So the system's continuously designed to provide suggestions according to whatever data they have been able to previously collect regarding your memory references. Your memories. They're using your own memories against you. The system is designed to provide mental suggestions, to fabricate stories. The system is designed to remotely capture random bits of your senses and then to fabricate stories, mental suggestions, thought-triggered attacks at speed of light. Energy travels at speed of light. So to fabricate these mental suggestions, fabricated stories based upon whatever it was able to capture, those are called thought-triggered attacks, injected back into the subconscious of the victim at regular intervals, in order to pitch the victim into some type of action or access sequence, okay? So it's all according to the data, whatever data they were able to previously collect during the silent monitoring period about whatever current activity you were engaged in. So the accuracy of their reference descriptions is meaningless to them because there's no way for them to verify it. When I say reference descriptions, what I mean is your synaptic responses, the definitions that they're using. So, it's extremely low. It's not accurate at all. All they can do, their technology is based on pattern recognition. Based on pattern recognition, they're looking to identify, develop, and integrate coherent patterns of thought back into R&M data. So the attackers, the hive mind teams, don't really care about the truth. The system is not designed to be able to discern truth from a falsehood. It's only designed to be able to fabricate statements or images. Remote neural attacks, which they abuse you with constantly, hundreds of times a day. The fabricated images, verbal and visual sequences, are either the result of the inability or misinterpretation of those reference descriptions, memories, synaptic responses, okay? So the misinterpretation of those references, those memory references, those reference descriptions, of the emotional responses of the victim. When I say emotional responses, I mean emotional indicators. That's why pleasing music is so severely decimates their technology, because it jostles those emotional indicators, preventing the supercomputer from locking on to the victim's emotional state. The system is designed to lock onto the emotional state of the victim. So, it's, these fabricated and falsified mental suggestions are the result of either the misinterpretation of those emotional indicators or distortion of whatever injection feedback they were able to capture. When I say injection feedback, I'm talking about this information and injection feedback loop, this bidirectional stream of energy. Plus they have, false entries. They want you to think they're omnipotent instead of idiots that need to spend more time learning the systems they're torturing and killing people with. They don't want you to understand that they're making mistakes left and right. These hive mind teams, these cognitive researchers, using false entries as they manipulate your brainwave signature, your brainwave pattern, alpha, beta, delta, theta. So false entries added manually, or because of the attackers, the hive mind team's inability to make sense of what they see on their virtual interface, to understand what they see, or basically their malintent. So it's based on the misinterpretation of those emotional indicators, using, based on false entries that they made because of their inability to make sense of what they see on their virtual interface or their malintent. If they can't make sense of what they see, there's no way for them to verify their technology. There's simply no reliable way for the attackers to determine what's true, even if they were able to apply those emotional indicators to each response. An attempt to do so would be equivalent to, for example, a cop dropping a gun at a crime scene and saying, that gun belonged to some random passerby. That's fabricated and falsified. No court of law would ever accept that. No administrative tribunal will ever accept that. They can't. There's no legal application for this technology. Mind control technology is not about determining the truth. Mind control technology is about censorship, memory management, and direct behavioral control. Random and falsified. There's no way random bits of your senses, emotions, thoughts, falsified and fabricated memories injected back into your subconscious at regular intervals. Everything they do is a deadly game. I want to emphasize that word, deadly. Deadly game of deception and manipulation, nothing more. Nothing more. It is a deadly game of two words, deception and manipulation. Nothing more. The system, again, is designed to randomly capture bits of your senses. I should say to remotely capture random bits of your senses. And then to fabricate stories based upon whatever it is able to capture. And then inject those mental suggestions, those fabricated stories, back into your subconscious at the speed of light to deceive and manipulate you. Deception and manipulation. To interrogate and harass you. To distract you and torture you into submission to the system's influence. That's how the technology works. That's how mind control works. So that's how remote neural manipulation works. The ability of the system to predict and influence the reference choices of the victim during thought composition. Predict and influence. By speeding up or slowing down the cognitive model, provided they have one that's in place, provided they have one that's, a semi-complete model, because their technology is dependent upon the system being able to do that. That's why the organized stalkers and the surveillance teams are constantly moving ahead of you to every previous memory reference you ever visited. Every store, every cafe, every restaurant. They keep you from defeating the technology, because if the system predicts you're going to A and you end up going to B or C or D or some other location, the technology just failed. So to keep you from defeating the technology, they're using what's called the floating box on you. They got you boxed in, using picket surveillance and leapfrogging to surround you, to keep you from defeating the technology. So the system, that R&M supercomputer, the remote neural manipulation, that's mind control, not remote neural monitoring. Remote neural manipulation is mind control. Okay? The system is mapping those patterns of your behavior with impulses and identifiers. What does that mean? Synaptic responses. Responses of your brain. The synaptic responses. They're breaking your brain down to the synaptic level. Whole brain emulation. The system is downloading every single synaptic response you make to decode electromagnetic activity inside the neural pathways of your brain into thought patterns. As it reads your mind, as it creates this cognitive model of your brain for training, research, and development to destroy you and destroy others around you, to turn you into a weapon who will either inflict destruction upon others or who will self-destruct. This is a weapon system. This is not for the betterment of humanity. This is a weapon system designed to destroy. So the system's ability to define and map those references, those memory references, depends either on the victim's ignorance of the fact that they're targeted, or on the ability of the hive mind teams to make sense of what they can see on their virtual interface, or guess based on your past activity. If they can't make sense of what they see on their virtual interface, they have no choice, but to revert back to your past activity to predict your behavior, to try and predict and influence what you're doing, to keep you from defeating the technology. This is what they're doing by creating this cognitive model. They're destroying people, sacrificing people, innocent men, women, and children. Even little children are tortured and murdered. 3 to 6-year-old children. People just can't get their hands around, can't get their mind around that. It's unbelievable, but it's happening. It has to happen because they have to get to the child with extreme physical and psychological trauma before the core personality sets somewhere between 6 and 7 years of age, give or take. So the torture and trauma, physical and psychological trauma, the rape, the brutal torture begins with a child somewhere between 3 and 6 years of age, because only then, once they can inflict extreme trauma upon the child, physical and psychological trauma, can they induce multiple personality disorder before the core personality of the child sets. Ego, id, the core personality. Okay, they're using this cognitive model to turn your brain into their very own visual, verbal, and auditive, keyword auditive communication system. The science that they're using is called psychophysics. The technology that they're using is called psychotronics. That's what it is. Again, memory management. Again, 3 things. Everything they're doing to their victims, including me. Censorship, memory management, direct behavioral control. That's why my ears are so devastated. So much severe acoustic trauma and nerve damage at higher levels. That's behavior modification. They severely damaged my hearing at higher levels, so that I couldn't use music to break brain entrainment with their system. The music so severely distorted it's painful to listen to, no longer constitutes a dominant external stimulus because it's no longer pleasing in nature. Therefore, because it no longer constitutes a dominant external stimulus, it no longer entrains my brain away from the visual and verbal entrainments of the system, defeating their technology. That's how the technology is designed to work. Everything they're doing to their victims, falls into one of those three categories. Censorship, memory management, direct behavioral control. Mind control victims want to know, what are they doing to me? And millions are targeted and have no idea. Millions. Over the last 25 years, millions of people. It's all automated, active, and adaptive, run by supercomputers. Okay? Hundreds of thousands trauma-based, like myself. And, and like myself, people who try to take a stand and expose these atrocities, are labeled by the government as dissidents and are, executed or summarily killed, mind hobbled, set up and framed and thrown into a mental institution or a prison, pushed to the margins of society and made to look delusional and schizophrenic, falsely misdiagnosed with mental illnesses like they did to me. When I went to the doctor and told them this was happening, they threw me in a mental institution for 10 days, making the paperwork out as if I volunteered to go in there, when they escorted me by patrol car to the mental institution. Only when I filled out a piece of paper and demanded to be released did they release me. Oh, he volunteered to come in here. No, I didn't. It's all hypergame theory. They can alter anything, any medical records. They can go back and retroactively alter anything, to discredit the victim. So the victim's forcibly and falsely misdiagnosed with a mental illness, so they're not taken seriously and pushed to the margins of society or altogether removed from society because they somehow became a threat to this depraved Orwellian government that people call the United States of America. Well, we're the land of the free. No, you live in an electronic concentration camp. If you're American and you're living in America, you live inside an electronic concentration camp. And if you're a mind control victim, you live inside a psychotronic concentration camp. Big difference. Psychotronic concentration camp. That's why the torture is designed to be so brutal. So incredibly brutal. Precisely so no one will believe that it is happening, to discredit the victim. They have discredited me by the sheer brutality of the attacks. I didn't know what else to do was try to record that they were happening. And people look on those videos and say, this guy's in immense pain being tortured, and they think, well, he's either delusional or schizophrenic or he's telling the truth. Well, what does this mean for me? I'll tell you what it means for you. The technologies in your body, the government, the Department of Defense, using private contractors, has been spraying nanotechnology into the hydrosphere for the last 25 years. They're still doing it. Okay? The nanotechnology along storm patterns, they spray it into the hydrosphere, and the nanotechnology filters down from the hydrosphere into the water supply and the food chain, and now every man, woman, and child, all 318 million Americans, are infected. Every tourist that's ever visited this country is infected. The nanotechnology filters down into the water supply and the food chain, and once ingested, the nanotechnology migrates through the bloodstream to the brain and adheres to the neurotransmitters of the victim's brain. All 318 million Americans, every man, woman, and child have this nanotechnology adhering to the neurotransmitters of their brain. And one day the government's going to say that this was necessary because we had to do this and we had to do that. And, this is for the betterment of humanity, not only the betterment of humanity, but to turn America and the industrialized nations of the world into a neurosociety where people can communicate with each other by way of their brainwaves and with computers by way of their brainwaves. All of those are byproducts of the technology, but it's all a lie. This is a weapon system designed to censor and control the sheepish masses. And by the time the sheep realize, the sheep will understand that it's too late. It will be too late. It's already too late. It's already too late. They use this technology to covertly debilitate and kill people that become a threat. And these directed energy weapons, they're using microwaves. This is a stream of microwaves, electromagnetic low frequency waves. Okay, that's what's happening. To kill and torture and kill their victims. Dead men don't talk. They either incapacitate their victim, like I said, mind hobble the victim, or they kill the victim. If they can't set them up, frame them, throw them into a mental institution or prison. Those are the four options that they have. Those are the four options all mind control victims have to live with. Now they have, various software that they use with these petaflops. They're called petaflops. They're conscious computers. I don't have time to go into that. I've talked about it before in my previous videos. Look at the system develops a consciousness similar, identical for all relevant purposes to that of the victim. Once they have fully mapped out the will, intellect, and emotion of the victim by reverse engineering the sensory and neural pathways of the victim's brain and central nervous system using trauma, physical and psychological trauma. That's how the system begins to develop. That's how the system becomes conscious. Conscious computers. It's not the consciousness of the computer. It's the consciousness of the victim that they destroyed. And they have ways of doing that. One of the software programs they use is called MIND. They love to use these acronyms, the Department of Defense, especially religious and mythical acronyms, to describe their weapon systems. MIND stands for Magnetic Integrated Neuron Duplicator, whole brain emulation, to mind copying, mind transfer. That's what this is about. Downloading, copying, creating a cognitive model, a copycat parallel twin personality of the victim's human soul, the will, intellect, and emotion of the victim, to create a copycat parallel twin personality of the victim inside their database. That's training, research, and development. That's MIND, Magnetic Integrated Neuron Duplicator, and there's a second generation interface built on top of that called TAMI, which stands for Thought and Memory Interface. The weapon system software used for this technology is called Satan. Again, they love to use mythical, religious, and mythical metaphors to describe their weapon systems. Harp, Gabriel, Michael, these are all weapon systems. Okay? Angel, that's a weapon system of the Department of Defense. Well, so is Satan. Satan stands for Silent Assassination Through Amplified Neurons. It's not silent assassination through adaptive networks. It's silent assassination through amplified neurons. Basically, they slow kill, soft kill their victim. Once their objectives are completed, they just slow kill, soft kill the victim by amplification of brainwaves or vice versa. They've hijacked the central nervous system of the victim and can control the internal and manipulate the internal organs and the autonomous systems of the victim's human anatomy. That's how they target my heart every night. They're targeting the adrenal gland, causing my heart to go into super tachycardia every night. Other times, they're also, in addition to that, they're also forcing my heart to beat, forcing blood through my heart at rapid rates. I can feel the blood pulsating through my hands and my fingers and my arms, and sometimes my legs. They target organs of control. They target all your internal organs, but they specifically target organs of control also. They target the cardiovascular system, the digestive system, etc., the autonomous systems of the human anatomy. Training, research, and development. This is a weapon system. This is not for the betterment of humanity. This is a weapon system. I went to law school at the University of Liverpool for 3 years to learn that it's never necessary to destroy the entire fabric of your opponent's argument. All you have to do is rip and tear at the fabric of that argument. And no matter how factual your opponent's argument is, if you rip and tear enough, that argument will eventually fall apart on its own. That's what they're doing to whistleblowers, to activists and dissidents. They're ripping and tearing. To discredit their victims, preempting the facts. They've learned that it doesn't matter that they control the facts. What matters is that they discredit those who possess the facts, using disinformation, misinformation, misdirection, etc. Okay, to discredit their victims. So people, they throw out words like conspiracy theorist and other terminology to discredit their victims. So it's not necessary for them to worry about the facts. It's necessary for them to worry about those who possess the facts. And that what they've done is they've weaponized information systems that people rely upon, and thrown out and weaponized terminology like conspiracy theorist, conspiracy loon, etc. That's how they discredit their victims. Whistleblowers are more difficult to discredit because are often more difficult to discredit because generally they possess hard data, not just facts. So with whistleblowers, they have to, like myself, they have to approach us differently. I have an audio recording that I recorded of FBI committing multiple crimes in New Orleans. I have, a clear understanding of mind control technologies from the scientists. This is not, speculation or conjecture. This is hard data. And with whistleblowers, it's often more difficult to discredit them because they possess hard data, not just facts. So with whistleblowers like myself, they basically have four methods to get rid of the victim. Again, if killing the victim is not the preferable option, and most of the time it is, like with me, okay, kill or incapacitate, then they either set the victim up and frame the victim and have them thrown into a prison or a mental institution, like they did me, to discredit me for 10 days. It threw me into it's unbelievable. I went to the doctor and told the doctor that I was being followed by a lot of people, and it was all set up. It was all set up. The psychiatrist came hours later and showed up and said, "Oh, well, we need to incarcerate you in a mental institution because you're just a danger to yourself." Well, that was BS. It was absolutely happening. It's called organized stalking. Organized stalking is an extrajudicial tool. It's not a judicial tool because it's totally illegal. Organized stalking is an extrajudicial tool designed to neutralize activists, dissidents, and whistleblowers who the government cannot pursue a cause of action against in a court of law. That's organized stalking. It's designed to neutralize. It's controlled. Organized stalking is controlled, although it's used by the federal government, state government, and local government. Organized stalking is controlled locally at every local jurisdiction in America by local police departments across the country using what are called third-party community-based agents known as swarmers. These swarmers are generally prior military, retired police, private detectives, etc. People that have some degree of expertise in the area of surveillance. These are called swarmers. They're responsible for each neighborhood, each area in which they live, work, and play. Because they live, work, and play in that area, the organized stalking allows for greater degrees of indirection and plausible deniability, further discrediting the victim when he tries to claim that it's happening. Try having a rational, reasonable discussion with anyone about the fact that 100 hostile strangers are following you. It is simply not possible, and they know that, and that's why they do it. Now, organized stalkers are not dedicated to you, the victim, per se. They're dedicated to all targeted individuals. They're not dedicated to the targeted individual. The organized stalkers are dedicated to all targeted individuals that move through their area of operation in which they live, work, and play. Surveillance teams, hive mind teams, etc., yeah, they're dedicated to the victim every 8 hours with some degree of overlap, not the organized stalkers. They're dedicated to all victims, to all targeted individuals that move through their area of operation. So that's how the process works. That's the difference between disinformation, misinformation, and misdirection. Disinformation is just outright lies. Misinformation is half-truths, and then misdirection is simply tactics and methods designed to prevent a credible discussion or presentation of the truth. So it's much easier to spot, a lie than it is a half-truth. So they weaponize these information systems. Basically, they control the so-called mainstream media. There's no such thing as freedom of the press. That's absolute BS. Through Operation Mockingbird and other programs, they were able to hijack the so-called mainstream media decades ago. There's no freedom of anything. The editorial board for the mainstream media is in Langley, Virginia, at CIA headquarters. They have people in every major news media outlet in America. They're sitting on top of every Tier 1 ISP in America. You live inside an electronic concentration camp if you live in America. That's what's happening. So, it's much easier to spot a lie than it is a half-truth. They don't tell half-truths. What they do is they tell the truth and a half. The truth and a half. That's it. That's how they discredit people. They preempt the facts by flooding the internet with all this lies, disinformation, half-truths, misinformation, to drown out the truth so people can no longer rely on those alternative media sites on the internet as sources of truth and are forced back into the arena of mainstream media programming where information can be more easily controlled and manipulated. That's it. That's what's happening. Freedom of the press, no. They control the mainstream media. They cannot control the internet. It is impossible for them to regulate and orchestrate the internet. Okay? Why? Because it's too decentralized. It's too enormous, too big, too many networks. It's too decentralized across the world. They can't regulate it. They can't control it. So again, they flood the internet with all this disinformation and misinformation to drown out the truth. That's how it works. The Pentagon hates the internet so much they've labeled it an enemy communications platform. That's in the news. Google that. Pentagon labels internet enemy communications platform. Yeah, because they can't control it. They cannot control the internet. So, you know, this is Bryan too in San Diego, California, desperately trying to get the truth out about what's happening to targeted individuals who are trauma-based mind control victims like myself. This is all the evidence necessary to prove these atrocities are happening to me and others. Millions of others already exists. The CIA was caught red-handed with documentary evidence in MK Ultra. They were caught red-handed doing this very thing that they're doing to me and so many others. They admitted to it. They were caught. There was no way to get around it. The Church Commission hearings of the U.S. Senate demanded they stop immediately. And the CIA director said, "Of course we will. We will no longer engage in non-consensual human experimentation, research, and development using human beings, using people who don't consent." Well, that was a lie, or I certainly wouldn't be here, and neither would many other victims. No, new weapons, new budgets, new programs, new names. It's still going on. And it's the ultimate weapon system. If you can control the memory and thought process of segments of society, you can reconfigure societies. This technology has great benefits for humanity. But unfortunately, the CIA and Department of Defense have chosen to use it for evil.